Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter. That over there, that guy is Tim.
Lists after midnight.
It is Lists After Midnight. It's a countdown after midnight because this
Was it worth it?
no. This is this is going to be the second half of our top 50 horror movies of the decade. The decade, of course, being the 2010s, because that's the one that we're just finishing right now. At least the time of recording. By the time this goes up, it might actually be January. I think it might be. But yeah, so Screams After Midnight, our top 50 movies of the decade. Of course, we're doing our top 10 of 2019 in a couple of months' time. We're going to catch up on some more movies before we do that. But we had a whole 10 years to look at with this list, and we've got our top 50 at the ready. We've done the first half, so if you want to see our numbers 50 through 26, we did that last week. The way this works, if you didn't see that video or that episode of the podcast, is Tim will give one of his picks, he'll explain it a little bit, I'll give one of mine, explain it a little bit, we'll alternate until we get to number one, and that's what we're going to do.
What are the years?
2010 through 2019, Tim.
Okay. Just making sure.
Well, given that we already did half of it, and you were supposed to know that when you picked the movies, I'm concerned.
Okay.
I'm a little concerned.
Just want to make sure, it's not 2011 to 2020.
So I have been up to here, right. The decades, the way we name decades is not about accurately like calculating the time of the calendar, right?
Yeah.
We name decades for cultural reasons, so we can talk about movies, so we can talk about the culture or whatever, right? And yes, the way math works is we start on a 1 and we end on a 10, right? So, however, decades, when we say the 20s, 1920 or 2020 is part of the 20s. It's in the name. We're starting. We're starting a new decade, right? That's what this is.
I agree with you. I just like seeing you get worked up.
Okay, all right. People were upset at me on Twitter when I was giving my opinions on this.
No, that doesn't sound like Twitter.
Well, usually it's you winding me up on Twitter, not others. But here we are. So yeah,
do a list of our best tweets.
Top 50 at Screams Midnight tweets. Follow us at Screams Midnight for all the best tweets. So without much further ado, we'll recap the first half when we get to number one, because we always like to recap the entire list up until number one before we do our number ones. But without further ado, Tim, let's get into it. What is your number 25?
All right, so this might sound a little weird because it's
From
winter
you?
right now.
Never.
It's winter right now, but my number 25 is spring.
What was that sort of intro? Was that Tim? That was terrible.
I mean, spring is great. It's it's almost like it's like a love story, but with with like a little bit of a horror element to it, and it's just it's just like really well directed. The creature parts I think are really cool, and you just get really like invested in the characters. It's a great little movie though.
I also like Spring. We did Spring a long time ago on streams.
Yeah.
I actually didn't put it on my list, and the reason why is because I think it's a good movie, but I think the horror parts of it are the worst part and aren't needed. So I left it off this because this is the 50 horror movies of the decade. But I do think it's a solid movie. I actually just saw we just did the same two directors, their next movie, The Endless.
The Endless.
We just did that on the Ace recently.
Oh, cool.
And they've got a new movie coming out with Anthony Mackie in it, so they're getting up in the world. They're getting stars and stuff. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would definitely be interested in anything they do. I think I mentioned this before. I might have started watching Endless and never finished it. No, because of the movie just prior something came up.
Because it was endless.
That is true. That would have been it. But no, I definitely got to go back and check it out. And yeah, I'll be interested in anything these guys do.
I thought you didn't like sci-fi, Tim. I thought you were strictly horror only.
Well, I don't know. Is it endless sci-fi though? I thought it was more horrorish. I don't know.
Nah,
I guess it
it's definitely sci-fi.
is. Okay, okay. All
Definitely
right.
sci-fi.
Well, I'll break my sci-fi rule and give it a go.
All right, my number 25 is Creep. This is
Ooh.
the surprising little found footage movie with Mark Duplass from 2014, 2015, around there.
Wow.
And this, what are you wowing at?
Oh, it just. I mean, it feels like.
Recent,
Yeah, like
yeah.
2014 sounds like long ago, but this movie feels like, oh yeah, I feel like it just came out like a year or two ago or something.
I don't think any year this decade feels that long ago now. Like I feel like there's movies that came out, especially in like 2015, that feel like they just came out. Like,
Yeah,
you know, Mad Max
totally.
Fury Road and stuff like that. I'm like, that just came out. Like, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's been 5 years already, or it's going to be
Jeez.
5 years next year at least.
Yeah.
Uh,
Dang.
so yeah, Creep is a found footage movie, and even before I saw this, I was sick to death of crap found footage movies. But this
Mhm.
did something interesting with it. Basically this serial killer who wants a documentary film made about him, so he hires a cameraman to document everything about him, and so there's a good reason why he's filming for a start.
Mhm.
That's first and foremost. There's only one scene in the entire movie that I felt that the fact that the camera was on was unjustifiable.
Mhm.
There was one scene that bugged me. Other than that, though, it was really well done. Mark Duplass plays a great like serial killer. It's like he's kind of nice, but he maybe kind of unhinged. You know, there's like one of my favorite shots in the movie is when he's got that peach fuzz mask on.
Yeah.
There's so much great moment, so many great moments in this. I think it's really effectively handled, and I was genuinely surprised when I saw it at how good it was. And it's, you know, I always champion the little low budget movie that doesn't feel like it's
Yeah.
padding or doesn't feel like it's a direct to streaming movie where it's mostly just fluff of people talking and delaying
Mhm.
things before the horror stuff kicks in. Uh,
Yeah.
so
No, yeah, I totally agree. This is a great movie, and yeah, it's like I feel like you kind of mentioned it. Like, what separates it from most other found footage horror movies is there's actually a reason for it to be found footage, and there's a reason why it's being filmed, and the person like is not automatically like running away from this thing, and then but I mean eventually he does actually do that, and it all feels like justifiable and everything. So it is yeah, it is great, and it is something that kind of like keeps you on your toes, like because if something's like off about him, but then you kind of go back and forth between like, all right, like, is he telling the truth? Is he dangerous, or is he just kind of lonely, or like is he trying to mess with this guy, or is
it
there
is,
something more good?
and
Like,
it's worth mentioning that he doesn't. I mean, the character is just filming this doesn't know he's a serial killer at the start of the movie.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's not there to film a serial killer. The guy. That's just the pitch that I'm giving you because that's what the movie is. But
Right, yeah,
he's like, I just want a documentary about my life or something for my. Did he say it's for
yeah.
his kids or something like that? I can't remember what his excuse was, but he says I want to make a movie about myself.
He said he was like dying, but he
That's what
has like a young child, and so he wanted to kind of show him what his life was like and stuff. And no, it's great. I didn't have it on my list, and honestly it's just because I forgot about it. Well, like, I think I remembered it like a few days ago, but I was like, I don't feel like making changes to
that,
the
that
list at this point.
this is like when we did our top 10 comics of the year, and Matt forgot Curse of the White Knight. He just forgot about it, and he felt like an idiot. So now you get to feel like an idiot.
I mean, I still feel pretty smart, but
Uh, to be fair,
so my other choices are so good.
there was also a movie on the sci-fi list that I forgot to put. Both me and Tara forgot a certain movie, and I was upset about it when I realized at the end of the list that I'd forgotten about it. But hey,
Terminator Genesis.
it was definitely not Terminator Genesis. I do get upset when I think about Terminator Genesis.
I mean, it is hard though, because it is like 10 years is like a long time, and like, I think I mentioned it before the last episode. Like, it was pretty easy to put together like the first like 35 movies or whatever, but then after that, then you really had to think. And yeah, there were times where it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about this movie or whatever, and then yes, sometimes some just slips through the cracks, unfortunately. But
Yeah, what's funny for me is that because I was born in '89, the way these decades work out is that I actually am my age is fits the decades. Like I had just turned 20 in 2009, and now I've just turned 30 in 2019. So you know. So next time we're doing decade lists, I'll be 40. Jesus Christ.
Yikes.
But you'll already be like
Yikes.
44, so.
Yeah.
Haha.
I'll be dead, probably.
Oh, dear. Right, is that you got married and got a house? You're like, you know what? Okay, I'm done. I've peaked. It's all downhill from here.
Yeah. Yeah. Not much keeping me going.
I've peaked. All right. What's your 24?
Hey, I'm not playing here. My 24 is Gerald's Game.
Okay.
I'm not playing. It is. It's Gerald's Game. I love. Obviously, again, I'm a big King head, and I was really impressed by this movie. It's just.
Hold on, Tim, I need to ask something. Like, do people actually? Do Stephen King fans actually call themselves King heads, or is this just you who's using this phrase?
I don't know. Maybe we should start.
Surely there's something more eloquent, like I'm part of the King's court or something like that. Like, you know, some sort of pun.
We're like I don't know, like knights or something. Like we look up to the king or something. I don't know. But no, this is a like a really simple idea. Where it's kind of like older married couple. They go to like this secluded cabin, and then the husband wants to, like do like a little kinky game where he handcuffs his wife to the bed, and then as he's doing that, he suffers a heart attack and falls over, and then the whole movie is this woman trapped to this bed and how she can get out, and then it's one of those like really simple concepts, but I feel like they able to do so much with it, and it was a really good book. But a lot of people, kind of thought it could, it'd be like impossible to film, because it does seem like, all right, how do you make that exciting for like 90 minutes or whatever? But I think Flanagan knocked it out of the park. The performances are great. It's very compelling. There's some genuine creepy moments in it. Like there's like one part halfway through that definitely gave me chills, and then there's a very, very extreme gory part. It's like hard to watch. But I know a lot of people complain about the ending. I get it. It is like probably kind of a weird tonal shift, unnecessary, but it doesn't bother me that much, at least not to the point where it ruins the movie for me. But I think it's a great little movie.
Yeah, I wasn't super like into the ending. I thought the movie's fairly well done. It has some great moments, but I was one who didn't like the ending at all. It over-explained things and got really cheesy. Would be my summary of it. But I'm glad Tim enjoyed it. I'm glad Tim was into it. Okay, I don't want to rain on his parade. My number 24 is one that you might have brought up last time. I don't know if you did. Mm-hmm. I forget now, because it's been a week, so I can't remember what you said in the first half. My number 24 is The Final Girls.
Oh, yes, yeah, I mentioned it.
You did, okay, right. So yeah, you've got this whole thing where the girls like sucked into the movie, Last Action Hero style, her and her friends. So we've got 2016 characters in a 1980s slasher movie, but the whole thing is that her mum is one of the characters in the movie, or she played one of the characters in the movie, so it's this kind of like, oh, I'm getting to see my dead mother again vibe. I guess what shocked me about this was just, obviously it has a lot of fun with the slasher movie tropes. I mean, it probably could have had even more fun if it was R-rated, but it's just how much heart it has and how much I was rooting for the characters and how kind of badass it was when she kind of decides to properly fight. I love proactive characters. I love them trying to like outsmart and play with the rules, and them definitely. So something as simple as them trying to use the quote-unquote slutty 80s character to lure in the killer into a trap is really funny. It's playing upon the tropes, and it's I don't know, really good stuff. Great cast as well, top to bottom. Adam Devine's in there as a douchebag 80s jock, which is really funny. You got, just top to bottom, great cast.
Farmiga's with.
Yes, the Farmiga. Well, you mentioned her. I remember you saying about her, so I wasn't going to mention her again. But yeah, really good. I think Fatal Girls is a really heartwarming, surprisingly heartwarming horror comedy.
Yeah, I think like heartwarming is like a great way to describe it. I think we probably even mentioned it when we reviewed it, but we're like surprised at how because it it seems like this might be good, but it might just be like a cheesy whatever comedy. But no, there is actually genuinely a lot of heart in it, and the I might have mentioned it before, but the only reason why I had it like lower on my list is because um yeah, like there wasn't as much horror to it. Like, yeah, maybe if it was R-rated or something and it had like kind of bigger, gorier kills or something. So it makes it a little bit because it's not like you necessarily need it. But I think in a case like this, when you're specifically in a Friday the 13th type movie, I do think you should see like Friday the 13th type kills and stuff. But I mean, it's still great without it. But I think it would have put it a little more over the top for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's fair. But no, I was genuinely surprised. It's not often we talk about how good a movie is because it's heartwarming on this podcast. But
that's true.
But not Happy Death Day. Sorry, mixing my movies up. Final Girls though definitely does fit that, and yeah. So there you go. What's your number 23, Timbo?
That would be Maniac. So the Elijah Wood vehicle. I still haven't seen the original. So I am curious about that.
We need to do both. They're both worth watching. But anyway,
do we never do this on the show?
Nope, we've not done either on the show. I saw this in theaters actually. This is one of these movies that only had like one showing a day because like obviously you didn't expect anyone to go see it. But I just so happened to I really wanted to see it, so I was like, no, I'm going to that 8 p.m. showing, that 8 p.m. showing, and I was glad I did.
Yeah, no, I like this a lot. It's like kind of like typical. Well, I mean, like on the surface, it's just a serial killer story, but what really sets it apart is the way it's filmed. It's all through the POV of Elijah Wood's character, and I think it kind of makes it like sets it apart as being.
Who we should mention is the killer. He's not like one of the characters. Yeah. Like it's all the POV of the killer.
So it kind of feels like a modern day version of like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, where it's like you're spending like a couple of days or whatever, like your time with this person but I mean just the showing it through like literally through their eyes, like it feels like you get in their head, and obviously it's like like a super messed up place, but it's so well done, and like Elijah Wood comes off like so creepy in this, and it's a really really good movie that I found myself coming back to it every now and again because it's just really well done.
Yeah, it's got that kind of Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer vibe where it feels really grimy and you feel kind of like dirty for being up inside this guy's head, but at the same time you're also kind of at the thrill of the chase and stuff. So it really plays with that stuff. So yeah, no, that's a really good pick. So my number 23, completely opposite end of the spectrum, is another surprising one for me that I did not expect to get anything out of, but I kind of love The Babysitter. I can't believe I'm saying this about a McG movie, but like this was like R-rated Home Alone. Is this kind of how I'd describe it almost? Where you've got evil babysitter Samara Weaving and her gang of like teenagers who want to sacrifice this kid to their demon god or what. I can't remember exactly what they were sacrificing him to, but they want to sacrifice this kid, and he witnesses them do something bad, so it becomes this game of cat and mouse where he kind of has to take on these evil teenagers one by one. But it's genuinely really funny, very witty, has a lot of cool moments. It pays off kind of well. It's not the most in-depth character arc in the world. I wouldn't say it's as maybe heartwarming to say The Final Girls, which I just had, but it's really kind of sweet and fun, and the character really has to kind of like grow up a little bit, because part of the whole thing is that he's too old to have a babysitter, right? But he's okay with it because he's got the hots for his babysitter, so he's like he's going along with it. He's like, yeah, I'll have the hot like 18-year-old in the house for me. Sure, I'll do that. No complaints from me, mom. So like that stuff's really cool, but I think it's the ensemble of all the evil teenagers. They're all pretty funny. It kind of plays on your expectations a little bit, and I thoroughly enjoyed The Babysitter, one of Netflix's best original movies. I said it.
Yeah, no, it's really fun. I think maybe it might have stuck with you a little bit more than me, but I don't like disagree with anything. It is, yeah, it's a really fun movie.
Yeah. All right. What's your number 22?
I forget if you mentioned it already, but 22 for me is The Conjuring.
Ah,
Um,
yes, yes.
so I mean, yeah, we talked about it before, but it's no, it's just really solid. It's and again, this is like the good version of like when you're doing like a big Hollywood horror movie, like James Wan, he is good at this stuff, and it's and again too, I would do feel like with the characters they introduce, like the Warrens and stuff are like surprisingly sweet, despite maybe some of the things you hear about the real life versions, but like the movie versions, you actually do kind of like root for, and but it still does like some really like good kind of classic like haunted house scares, and you could like maybe criticize it for having kind of jump scares and stuff, but they're so well done that it's like this is like a good version of that. But it's it's a movie that stuck with me even after seeing it so
Yeah.
many a year ago.
I hope this, because obviously, like, it's set in the 70s, the first two. I hope, since it's moving through time, that the third one's set in 1984, and like there's like a running gag in the movie that they're disgusted by Ghostbusters. They hate Ghostbusters, and
Oh
like
yeah.
they're spitting on, like, every time they see it mentioned in a newspaper or something, like, stupid propaganda movie making us look like fools.
Yeah, you can even squeeze a little Wonder Woman in there.
I mean, I know the new Wonder Woman was set in 84, Tim, but it wasn't actually out in 84. Do you understand how this works, right? You understand the concept of time.
Hey, I mean, it's owned by the same studio, though. They could just like run into Gal Gadot. She could just be like give him a little nod and a
Oh,
wink. And
so what you're saying is you want Conjuring universe to be integrated into the DC universe. That's what you're saying you
yes,
want. All right.
yeah. Why not?
I thought, given my Ghostbusters example, you wanted the Wonder Woman 84 movie to exist as a movie in the movie, but no, you want them to run into Wonder Woman. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I've established that.
What's wrong with that?
This will be the start of Justice League Dark. It'll be Justice League Conjuring.
Yeah.
All right, my number 22. My last pick was The Babysitter. This is the complete opposite end of the spectrum from something so light and almost kid friendly, not really, but almost kid friendly in The Babysitter, to Terrifier, which I think you had in the first half.
Yeah.
I love just how nasty this little movie is. Like, it's just a movie about an evil looking clown character, a slasher movie villain, who is so absurdly violent. The stuff that he does to his victims is just so over the top, and he's so silent, which I love. I love that he never says a word. It's kind of like an expressive version of Michael Myers, where Michael Myers, of course, is silent, but he's also completely stoic. He's got the mask on; you don't see what he's thinking or what he looks like. This is a character who will smile and laugh when he gets to do something truly evil, and there's just the surprising moments where he'll do non-slashery things to win a slasher. It's almost like it's subverting like the expectations of, because we've seen a bunch of slasher movies. Okay, there's these rules where slasher villains always do this, so they always chase a victim like this. There's a moment in this movie where he just pulls out a gun, and I'm like, whoa, okay, so he can just win. Like, he's got that in his back pocket at all times, and it's just like, it plays with things a little bit, and I like that. But it's so grisly and nasty. It's not the best acted movie ever or whatever, but like, for a nice little for a decade that doesn't really have a lot of slasher movies, because let's face it, we've not had a good decade for slasher movies really since the 80s. Let's be honest, because the 90s slasher movies mostly aren't good. So it's nice to have a couple of good examples. I mean, the 2000s had, maybe, what would you count, The Strangers, maybe, after that. Like, couple
I'm
of
not
things.
as hot on that as most people, but I mean that'd probably be one of the standouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like early 2000s. They're trying like a lot of remakes, and I don't think many of them turned out that great.
Yep. So, I mean,
yeah, no, I mean, Terrified, yeah, is really good. Yeah, it's kind of funny. We have like a lot of like similar movies on our list around this section, but we had just had them in different places, which is interesting.
Just mixed up.
Yeah, but no, Terrified is great, and like you said, it's so brutal. That's like, and another thing I feel like we haven't had in a while, like, like even if we have something that's gory or something, it feels like, I don't know, like the gore in this almost feels like dangerous, like in a way, it's cool, like it lives up to its
Well,
name. And
I think for a long time, gore in movies was torture porn, right? But this is not. I mean,
right, yeah.
like that. This is like no. Like I mean, this is more about just the absurdity of just how bloody and violent you can make something look.
Yeah.
And visceral. There's a lot of visceral. There's moments where he'll like do something, and you can feel the stab, or you can feel it feels violent. And maybe I sound sick for saying I like that, but like I had a grin in my face the entire. I was loving this movie. I was in delight.
And like one thing I really like that I feel like we kind of got further away from, like with slashers in like the 70s and the 80s and stuff. I like a good slasher set in the city, and I guess Maniac is kind of like that too, where I like when the city feels like dangerous and sleazy versus because it feels like a lot of the other stuff we got. We got a lot more like rural kind of like rednecky slashers in the last couple of years, but just like man, that like there's like one of my favorite settings is just like grimy New York and like like the late 70s or early 80s or something, where it's just like feels like there's just roaming gangs and trash cans on fire and stuff. And I love that feeling.
And vats of toxic waste. And possibly Jason Voorhees might punch off someone's head.
Possibly,
Possibly, yes. No, I'm on board with all of this, Tim. What is your number? What are we on? 21.
21. So again, another one I think you already mentioned, but somewhat related to the maybe Conjuring adjacent, I guess you could say, but Insidious Chapter 3.
Yes.
I really love it. This might actually be my favorite Insidious, which is kind of like I really was into the story, and I think some of the creepy moments in it are so well done, especially one that just really sticks out in my mind. When she's on the bed and like she falls down and she's like looking through the bottom of her bed, and you just see like these other feet come out of nowhere, and they start like turning off anything that has lights in it, so it gets like enveloped in darkness. And it just really stood out to me as being just really good, effective scene. And I like the characters and the idea of like you're in danger, but you're also like your like legs are broken, so like there's so little stuff you can do. And it just really, really stuck with me. A lot of like the scares and set pieces and stuff.
Yeah, it's a really simple idea. Just to, okay, we're going to do the haunted house thing. We're going to do Insidious again, but this time the main character is in a wheelchair and can't move. And it's like, wait, all of a sudden you've refreshed it in a way that makes it feel even more vulnerable. And that's like, okay, let's see what we can do with that. So
yeah. And then, and it's like, sometimes you get a little nervous, like, when James Wan leaves, but, like Lee Wanell was, pretty like instrumental in it as well. And, it seems like he was, a good person for this one. And then, it's a shame that maybe he didn't do the fourth one, because then, the fourth one kind of just, not the worst thing in the world, but then it just kind of.
It was a notable step down from the rest of the series.
Yeah.
On the upside, though, Invisible Man's looking pretty good.
Very excited, yeah.
Looking pretty good. My number 21. This is a biggie, actually. My number 21 is Get Out. So. I felt like Tim was going to say something there. I thought he was going to say, "Oh, fine, I will get out." I thought he was going to like get up and storm out of the room. No, Get Out, of course, is a big milestone in horror for the decade. It was, I mean, not just because it was like nominated for Best Picture, which is, not exactly something a lot of these movies on our list can claim to, but it was a very distinct new voice in the horror genre. And we've had a lot of new directors this decade. That's definitely been something that's been true across the board. But this was very much, let's have a movie, a horror movie that's from the Black experience. Let's have something that's told from a very particular perspective. And it's really well directed. And I remember going to see this in just in the first like scene or two, like going through the street. There's the characters walking through the street, and he's worried that something might be falling. I mean, you're feeling tense. I was like, this is really well directed. I had no idea Jordan Peele, that comedian dude, could do this. So there's a lot of subtext in the movie. There's a lot of great character moments in the movie, and it kind of hit the zeitgeist in a way that Like, you know, I don't think anyone was kind of expecting it to. Like, you know, I was seeing Get Out references in like various TV shows after this. I was seeing people talk about the sunken place
Yeah.
and so on and so on. But mostly it was just nice to have a new voice. It was because I came out of this and going, I genuinely don't feel like I've ever seen a horror movie from this perspective before that was ultimately about not just racism, but about like ultra kind of like liberal, I want to prove I'm not racist racism, if that makes any sense. Like that was really what it was about.
Yeah, definitely not. It's like an interesting take, like, you know, kind of showing that, you know, yeah, like just because you're not like using derogatory, just because you're not like outright saying like some super racist stuff doesn't mean that you're not like um yeah, being racist. Like it you know, it's a really good like interesting perspective. And yeah, I think you know, like yeah, it was surprising how well this like took over, because I think like a lot of horror fans after seeing the trailer and stuff, we were like, oh, this looks interesting, like it could be really good. But yeah, it was surprising like how much it kind of like took over, yeah, just like the regular conversation at that point. And
I remember the first time I saw a trailer and I knew nothing about it. I didn't know who was directed. I didn't know anything. I remember the premise just made me go, "Whoa, that was ballsy." Because I think
yeah.
I think my assumption was that it might be a white guy directing it, and I thought, "Oh, geez, this might be kind of rough in terms of what it does." But obviously, it became very clear very quickly that it wasn't, and it ended up being a really sort of interesting new point of view that we hadn't seen in cinema. And the you know, if you know, outside of equal opportunities, if we're ever going to champion for diversity, the reason why we should do it is because the more voices, the more distinct voices and perspectives we can have in any medium leads to more varied and interesting stuff. It leads to more just more of everything. It makes things less stale. So yeah, Get Out accomplished a lot, so Get Out.
And I think it's an interesting time right now where we are, you know, not just horror movies, but in general are becoming more aware of like social issues and stuff. And, you know, I know, you know, there's a lot of people out there that don't always like to talk about that or be reminded of it, but I think it's hard to ignore. And I feel like the decade didn't start off like this, but I feel like the kind of the later half that, you know, kind of became a bit of a trend we started seeing in more horror movies, which where, you know, yeah, all of a sudden you are seeing stuff that's more about race and, you know, sexism and, you know, like Me Too movement kind of stuff, and it's really interesting and
I mean,
cool to see.
We just mentioned The Invisible Man, and that looks super Me Too in terms of what it's doing. And this is the thing, like maybe it's more overt right now, but horror has always been political. It always has been. Go back and watch our review of Night of the Living Dead. Like our entire conversation in that was about race in Vietnam and like all that stuff. Like it always has been, even when it's not super obvious. Like the politics of the world tend to drive the type of horror movies that are being made. Like you know, when fear of immigration was a big thing in the mid 2000s, there was all of a sudden a lot of home invasion movies. There was, and that one's a lot more subtle, but like it's always driving what horror does. So you know, so if that got too political, sorry, but horror is inherently political at times. As much as I enjoy sometimes a mass killer just going around bloodying people up, sometimes it's got something to say, and often that can lead to better experiences. So Tim, what is your number 20?
My number 20, a newer movie on the list, and that would be Midsommar.
Midsommar.
Yeah, and it's funny because when Get Out came out, I think that was the same year as Hereditary. I believe.
That's
or was it 1 year apart?
No, 1 year, because Get Out was 2016. No, wait, was Get Out 2017? If it was 2017, they were both the same year.
Okay.
No, wait, no, hold on. Midsommar was this year. Hereditary was just last year. So no, they were separate.
You're right. Okay.
Yeah.
But I feel like Peele and Ari Aster are just like two like, you know, new voices to the horror scene that just like really came out with such heavy hitters. And
back to back movies really quickly as well. Like they both got the second movie out pretty snappish.
Yeah, and I love that, like, you know, they both are. I mean, who knows, you know, what future movies will be and everything. But I love that they were still, wanted to do a horror movie. Sometimes someone come with a horror movie and then go on to direct a Marvel movie or something. But like, I like that they're doing this. And then Midsommar, I think was a great follow up to Hereditary. It still had like a lot of the what he does great is just like the awkwardness of people being in situations they shouldn't be, saying things that they shouldn't say, and while there's also horrific stuff going on, and also like weirdly dark funny moments, and he's just really I mean, just going by these two examples of what we've seen from him so far, is just a master storyteller that's just doing really interesting stuff that other people like don't really seem to go to, like
Right.
like it almost feels like it's stuff that like someone wouldn't want to like approach or something. Just these really real dark conversations.
Very unique voice, knows how to build tension. Yeah, like Ari Aster's obviously one of the biggies that's just kind of hit out. And what's funny is that my number 20 is Hereditary, so this is on point for the conversation. Hereditary, despite the fact that I have a few problems with like how it ends, it doesn't take away from the fact that this is expertly directed, and the middle of this movie is some of the best stuff of the decade, like just on its own. Like there's a whole section from, I'll just say, the car scene and everything in the next, let's say, 20-30 minutes where this movie became terrifying, not because of any of the supernatural stuff that might have been happening, just because of like I was terrified of the characters finding out about what just happened, and I was terrified from the way the relationships were going to be after that revelation. Like I was so tense throughout that section of the movie. It was so good. It was almost to a point where I didn't even need the supernatural stuff. The horror of the family drama was horrifying enough. I didn't need anything else. Was that good?
Yeah, like I think when I first saw this in theaters, I feel like during those scenes that you were talking about, like halfway through watching them, I would just be like, oh, I need to breathe. Like I forgot that I haven't been breathing for like the last like 20 seconds or whatever, because you are so caught up, and it and it's just a movie, but you still feel so like, holy shit, this is the worst thing I'm seeing. Like I can't even imagine being in this situation. And then the way they react is so like spot on for like not necessarily what you would do in that situation, but just like you can see someone just reacting that way, and it's superb.
Yeah. Excellent. What is your number 19?
I don't know if this will be controversial, because I don't know if maybe people might skew this as being more sci-fi or whatever. You can make the argument for, I guess, but you can't deny like there is so much creepiness and horror in this movie, and that is Scotland's own Under the Skin. This is like, man, this might be like one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen, and I've seen some pretty like weird stuff, but it is, man, it just gives you such like a strange feeling when you're watching it. It is just so like eerie and otherworldly and creepy. But
to answer your query, by the way, it is equally sci-fi and horror, so it is more than valid for this list. They can
okay.
This list doesn't have to exclude sci-fi; it just has to also be horror. You're good.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, when you think of this decade and you think of some of the biggest horror monsters, and it's hard not to think of Scarlett Johansson.
Certainly makes me think twice about just getting into any random white van just because the pretty woman behind the wheel says, "Hey, do you want a lift?"
Yeah. But I mean, I can see some people like, not liking this movie because it is a slow burn. It is very weird, but
it's super art house. It's like super. Yeah. It's like Kubrick with a touch of David Lynch injected right into your veins. I almost want, because Scarlett Johansson has an English accent in it, and I wonder if that's because it's obviously set in Scotland. For anyone who doesn't know this, it's set in Scotland, and the whole point in the book that it's based on is about this alien woman who is basically trapping men, just picking them up around the Scottish countryside, to feed them or whatever back to our home planet, whatever you call it. Are they harvesting the organs for energy? Or they are harvesting whatever? I mean, it's kind of unclear, some of that stuff, but like I actually wonder, like it's set in Scotland, and you hear a lot of Scottish accents, you see a lot of Scottish places, because I didn't know when I saw it that it was set in Scotland. I had this weird surreal experience about 10 minutes into it, starting to recognise places, and I'm like, wait a minute, I know that street. But I wonder if like she just couldn't do a Scottish accent, and that's why her character's got an English accent, because she could do that. I just wonder. Yeah. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Maybe. I don't know. But it's like, I mean, I don't even know like what else to really say about it other than it's crazy, but it sucks you in so well.
It's slow, it's moody. And even though there's kind of an uplifting element to her story, by the end it's just a horrifying look at humanity.
Totally. Yeah.
So that's those kids are fine pick, Tim. Fine pick. All right, my number 19 is A Woman Walks Home Alone at Night. This is the Iranian vampire western, romance vampire western. Let me correct that genre there. This movie is stylish and moody as hell. It is shot in black and white. It is about a sort of fictional town, doesn't really have a name, and the sort of romance between this vampire woman and the sort of drifter guy who's kind of like down in his luck. And there's not really that much of a plot. Watching it again for the show, because I'd seen this, a number of years ago, and then we did it for the show maybe last year or something like that. Like I'd forgotten just how little plot there really was. It's more about the suspense and the mood. And I can't really sum this up more than just a shot of the woman in question riding a skateboard and having, just like flowing in the wind and the skateboard like down a street in black and white. It's such a great visual. There's a movement, there's like a sort of weird movement to her body language. There's great moments where she's stalking prey at night, and we have this sort of the great use of the framing, and it's a stylish feast is what A Woman Walks Home Alone at Night is. And again, talk about having perspectives and different voices in cinema. This is another example of that. So yeah,
totally. No, this is it's a wonderful movie, and again, it's something that might not be for everyone. It is a slow burn and everything, but like if you like, like style in filmmaking, like there's so much of it, and it just like really oozes personality. It's fantastic.
There you go, simple. What is your number 18?
So I think this is one that I don't think you're crazy about, but I really, really like it. And for me, that is The Autopsy of Jane Doe. I think like really, really cool idea for like a bottle movie. It's just like set in one location, or like, it's like mostly just a basement they go into. It. There's a few different other rooms and stuff there, but it's just two people there, and essentially it's kind of like a haunted house, but except for it's they're performing an autopsy on someone, like a just random person, but creepy stuff starts happening, and it's such a
Jane Doe does mean random unknown person. That's kind of a John Doe and a Jane Doe. That just means we don't know who it is. I love the idea that there's someone out there who's actually called like Jane Doe, and they're like so like this like they must get so confused when like no, her name's actually Jane Doe. We're not confused by who this is. This is Jane Doe. This is Miss Doe.
There's got to be at least like one person out there with that name, but no, I just think it's like really well done, super creepy. Great performances from Emile Hirsch and Brian Cox, and just like a lot of really cool stuff. And again, just one of those simple ideas I think is executed really well. I know I think you in particular didn't like the ending. I think some other people have problem with it, but again, it's maybe not the best, but it doesn't bother me that much.
I like the setup a lot. For me, it was just the last act got a lot really generic for me. But I mean, whatevs. But Brian Cox, by the way, another Scottish person, just pointing that out there.
Okay. Bit of a trend. I didn't realize that.
Bit of a trend here, because my number 18 is Split, and of course James McAvoy, also Scottish. So they're everywhere. My
Scott Black.
My brethren are everywhere. But. No, Split for me was a huge surprise, and admittedly, part of the reason why I love this is not even because of the horror nature of it, but I do think the horror part of it is really well done. It's a surprising return to form for M. Night Shyamalan, who was making just crap for like 10 years. Some people were positive on The Visit.
I cannot imagine why.
We were not. I mean, I didn't hate it as much as Tim did. Like I was like, I thought it was.
Hate.
I thought it was like, I thought it was like a mediocre like 5 out of 10. Tim was like gunning in here with his 2 out of 10, like screaming and raving about how much he hated the kids.
So bad.
But Split, I thought was.
You want to talk about a freaking found footage movie that there's no reason why they should be filming. Ugh.
Mm-hmm. So Split, has a great performance by McAvoy, who's doing all these personalities, the split personalities of this crazy person who's kidnapped 3 teenage girls. One, of course, is played by Anna Taylor-Joy, who I suspect might pop up again in this list somewhere else. But
New Mutants.
But
can a movie count if it was supposed to come out this decade?
No. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait until 2029 when we're doing our best of the 20s, so we can put New Mutants on there. But like, you've got this wonderful performance. You've got this kind of touching thing where she tries to kind of bond with McAvoy's, at least some of his personalities, and it really does. And I love the build to the idea that there's this other personality that I've not seen yet, this worst personality, this beast personality, and I think the build to that and then the actual visuals of that when we get there are really good. It's a nice little low budget inventive movie, and I think there's like one. I think the therapist character's a little bit not the best actress in the world, but other than that, like, I really had a blast with Split, and I was surprised. And yes, the ending, which does something which I won't spoil, was a big deal to me because I really care about the other thing that it relates to. So, but I love Split. Yeah,
it's kind of funny. Pardon the pun, I guess, but I'm kind of split on it. Like it is definitely the best thing M. Night Shyamalan's done in quite a while. But some of it didn't work for me versus other parts that did. I mean, definitely can't deny like McAvoy's performance. So he's great. Some cool. It's a good pick. Some cool stuff in it, but it just wasn't totally my jam.
Well, why don't you wow us then when you're number 17?
We're on 17.
Yeah,
okay,
17.
So that would be follow me here on this. Evil Dead, but of course I'm talking about the remake. So in case you're confused, but because there was another one that came out this decade.
I don't mistake things when Jane Levi's involved. Okay, right? Continue.
No, I mean, I think like as horror fans, I think a lot of times you're kind of wary of remakes, especially when you're gonna do like one of the most famous like horror movies or horror franchises or whatever that exists out there. But I mean, they pulled it off, and they were able to make something that was like really good. And it's great because it sets it apart enough from the original where it's like, okay, like I see why this exists, because it's different enough, but at the same time, you get like somewhat of a feeling for it. And they made the brilliant decision to not include a new Ash character, because there's no way you can live up to like Bruce Campbell. So just don't even make that a factor. But it's so brutal. There's so much great gore and kills in it, and
I would go even further and say that it didn't even, not only did it not try and do Ash again, it didn't even try and do Evil Dead 2 at all. It wasn't like, no, we're going to do a horror comedy. We're going to do a straight edged, rough as hell horror movie, and just do that.
Yeah, and I really dig it. It's I think they succeeded immensely, and man, it's a shame we never got at least not yet got a sequel to it, because it would have been really cool to see where they might have gone with it. But this is a great example. I did have a surprising number of remakes on my list. I'm not anti-remake, but generally they're not usually the best. But I had a decent amount here.
I guess the remakes of the 2010s worked out a little bit better than the remakes of the 2000s.
Without a doubt, they must have like finally realized, okay, maybe this is how we do it. Because it is a lot better than the early ones we got in the 2000s.
Having said that, though, I'm pretty sure Nightmare on Elm Street was 2010, so that was this decade. Not that I've seen it yet, admittedly. We're getting there soon. My number 17 is one that I know Tim's not that keen on, but I kind of love Darling. We did this a few years ago. It's another one that's actually all in black and white. It's people have compared it to what do you call it from Polanski? Oh God.
Obviously not Rosemary's Baby.
No.
Fearless Vampire Killers.
The name's escaping me. Anyway,
it begins with an R.
Repulsion? Is it Repulsion?
That's what I was thinking of.
Maybe. Anyway, and it is similar, and it is but like I loved how this movie felt. I loved the tone. It's like a 75-minute movie. It's about this woman who's like looking after this hotel, and she's clearly going crazy. I love the build up to her doing something violent. I love the way it's shot. I was just sucked into it the entire time, and for me, and like I know I'm in the minority here because even like other film nerds I've heard sort of say, "Oh, this I can see what it was trying to do, but it's just doing this movie again." But I just like I don't know. I'm just so into it. The style worked for me. I thought to the point where I do want to see more of Mickey Keaton's films, and I still haven't, bizarrely for some reason. I know he did a sci-fi one called Pod or The Pod or something like that. Okay. I should check that out at some point, but I was into this, and funnily enough, there was a cameo in this as a police officer. Was Larry Fessenden, who was the director of a movie we just recorded. Although you may not have seen that yet, because I don't know if that's been up yet, but that'll be up soon. So there's a little bit of connective tissue there. Cool. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, Tim. It's fine.
I mean, I wasn't as hot on it as you are. I mean, I won't deny that it has style for it, and it did look good. I'll give it that. But just some of it didn't work for me.
All right, what's your 16?
16, I believe you mentioned a little earlier as well, but that would be The Conjuring 2. So I mean, again, The Conjuring, I thought was a really good movie, but I think the second one just ramps it up and gives even better set pieces, some really good scares, introduces really cool, compelling characters, and again, now that you've had a little bit of time with the Warrens and stuff, you feel even closer to them, and it's nice to see them again. And then the family dynamic in this one is really interesting, and it's just maybe nothing particularly inventive or anything, but it's just one of those ones that takes all right, here we have a good first movie, and we're just kind of gonna amp it up and go even bigger and better with it, and just it's really solid. I talked about this in the first half. I was impressed with how much I cared about the two characters in the second one. I'll leave it at that. My number 16, another biggie. So some of the biggies are starting to pop out here because obviously from here on it's kind of biggies mixed with personal things that I'm going to have to justify. But my number 16, and this is one that'll maybe go up when I see it again because I've only seen it the once still, but that is The Witch. Which is a wonderful slow burn of a movie. At the time of recording yet, I've not seen The Lighthouse. We're doing that relatively soon. We're weeks away from recording The Lighthouse review. But The Witch is unapologetic in what it's doing. It is so focused. It's a slow burn, but it's a slow burn that knows exactly what it's doing the entire time. It's Anya Taylor-Joy. She's constantly being doubted. It's clearly a movie about the treatment of her, the expectations of her, what she's supposed to be, what she's not supposed to be, and how that drives her into something more extreme. And the tension building in The Witch was fantastic. And honestly, the only complaint is that you might need subtitles because they're speaking in old timey English speak, and it's actually so thick at points that you kind of need the subtitles to keep track of what's being said. But other than that, it is a triumph, and there's a reason why this is one of the most talked about horror movies of the decade. So it was one of those ones that when it was coming out, I think there was a lot of articles of people saying oh, it's the scariest movie in 50, well, not 50, but the last couple of years and stuff. I was talking.
I every time a new horror movie comes out, it's a big deal. I hate when they say it's the scariest since whatever, because don't bill it as scary. That is the layman's way to try and bill a horror movie. It's a losing battle. If you tell someone something scary, if it doesn't scare the shit out of them. They're going to be like, well, it's not as scary as you said it was going to be. Then don't tell them
And
that.
that's
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of the conversation became like after this
Yeah.
movie. I definitely saw a lot of people that maybe watch like one or two horror movies a year, and they're just like, that wasn't scary, and it's like, but there's so much more to it than than that. It's just it's masterfully done.
It's fine. They can go watch Hobbs and Shaw. It's fine.
Sure, yeah. It's all right. You go watch like It Chapter 2 and get scared, but the big CGI thing jumps out at you.
Yeah, you common peasants. Go watch It Chapter 2, you tasteless hacks. All right. That was my pick. I was 60. Yeah, so it's your number 15 now, Tim.
This might be one of the last ones that we disagree on. 'Cause I think for the rest of the list, we're probably pretty spot on. But yeah, I don't think you were hot on this one. I really, really liked it, and that is The Wailing. I believe it was a South Korean movie.
Yep.
But I just thought it was like utterly creepy and just really especially again, obviously don't want to give stuff away, but let's just say a part in a cave in the end that I just thought was really cool and well done, and just a good like.
And when you spend the 2 hours and 30 minutes to get there, you'll be rewarded for it.
It is a slow burn for sure, but I mean it worked for me. I was like invested in the whole thing, and then it's like demony, supernaturally, but again, sometimes it's nice to see something like from like a different perspective and stuff. I thought like a lot of just seeing like some of the city stuff in it that was interesting, but it's actually one I would like to watch again because it has been a while at this point, but I really, really liked it.
Yeah, that's one of these ones that just didn't click with me. I was just I felt alienated the entire time I was watching it. It was kind of strange. There was definitely moments I liked, but like I felt the length for sure, and I wasn't into it that much, which is a shame.
I won't argue that it could be trimmed down for sure.
Maybe I'll revisit it at some point and see if it clicks with me better. And it's not. This is not me like not liking foreign movies. I love Korean cinema. I love tons of South Korean movies. This one just didn't click with me at all. But anyway, so my number 15, something completely different, is Happy Death Day. I love Happy Death Day. I think Happy Death Day is a blast of a time, and it's admittedly as effective as a horror movie. Not so much because it leans into it's a horror comedy, especially the second one definitely does. But it's it's Groundhog Day with a slasher villain. It's Groundhog Day where the main character keeps getting killed. And every day she wakes up, has to figure out who's killing her and why she's looping, and that's what the movie does, and it's a delightful time. But I think what surprised me so much about this is that I genuinely started to care about the characters, and primarily the main character, who's played wonderfully by Jessica Roth. I basically became a fan of her because of this movie. She has such a good arc, which is kind of the same arc that all good Groundhog style movies have, where the character's kind of an asshole, and then through repeating the days learns to not be an asshole because they learn the impact they can have if they're better and understand how nice people are around them and all that. But it's well done. It works, and there's a reason why it's been used a few times. There's a reason why this and Edge of Tomorrow were both really solid reinventions of Groundhog Day formula. I was into it. It has a lot of heart, surprising amount, and is genuinely pretty funny. And I can't believe I'm praising something that Scott Lobdell had anything to do with. But here I am. If you don't know who that is, that's a comic book writer who also happened to co-write the script for this movie. And I hate his comic books. Like, I hate them. But here we are.
Yeah, no, this is a really solid, fun movie. I still really like the first one. Man, we don't need to go into the sequel, but less said about that, the better. But
I had a blast with the sequel. I mean, I wouldn't even dare put it on a horror movie list because it's not really a horror movie anymore. But I as a sci-fi comedy, I love the second one. So
I just couldn't stand it. But no, the first one is really good. No, maybe the horror elements could have been a little better, but like it's still a really solid, fun ride. And the characters are great in it. You really, especially, the main character, you really get to know and love, and it's great.
Yeah, I'll rep for Happy Death Day. What is your number 14?
So you just mentioned it a little earlier, but it's A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Yeah, again, it's just just oozes style, and like the imagery really sticks with you, and it's like I don't know, maybe it might feel kind of weird to say, but it feels like a cool movie. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's not like you don't want to be the asshole that's like, like busting out, like, oh, I've seen this, indie movie you never heard of or whatever. Like, not in that sense, but just like, I don't know, like sometimes you just watch something and like, this is cool. I like this. But yeah, and yeah, I guess we didn't really mention it, but the main character, like the person that plays it, does such a good job, and um, yeah, again, not for everyone. It's a could be a little slow and and whatnot. But I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, if you're
what we're saying to people is here, if you want to be a good horror fan, if you want to like good horror, you have to be okay with a slow paced movie because most of the
yeah,
best horror is slow paced.
yeah, definitely.
End of discussion.
Yeah, and it's like maybe challenge yourself and try to watch things that are different or whatever. But I don't know. I don't want to sound pretentious, but it's really good. It's cool. Check it out.
I do want to sound pretentious. Do better, you filthy casuals. All right, so that was your number 14. My number 14. So you're asking what's next. Your next is next because your next is my number 14. Talk about surprises. Like the ones that stick out to me in this list that I really kind of appreciate in a way, obviously not necessarily at the top because they're in order of my appreciation, but like is the ones that surprised me. And, like we've mentioned a few of them already where I just didn't expect, Babysitter, for example, or even Terrifier to an extent. But your next was a movie I went to see to kill time. I've said this story before, but I went to see it with a friend at university to kill time because we had to wait for something. And I hated the trailer. I thought I'd seen the trailer like 50 times just because I went to the movies a lot and thought it looked bad. And this movie is such a good fun time. It's a movie where the final girl character is actually really resourceful, really smart, and as soon as those killers like around this house attacking this family dinner, she starts preparing, she starts planning things, she starts setting traps. She's capable, she fights back, and it's also honestly kind of funny in places as well, sometimes really intentionally, and sometimes I'm not sure if it is intentional or if it's just more just the absurdity of it makes it funny to me, but like it's a really delightful time, and this put Adam Wingard for me on the map. And unfortunately, he's had a couple of weak movies recently that have not been super hot. But I had a blast with this. I left this so pumped, and I was like, you know what, this is why I love giving some stuff a chance that I don't feel good about otherwise, because sometimes this can happen. Sometimes it can just completely prove me wrong and be like, no, this is a good movie, and you're going to walk out loving it. So. There you go.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, I had it a little earlier on my list. I think that's how is my number 26. So we ended the last episode, but no, yeah, it is great. All the performances are really cool, and so many fun deaths, and like lots of nice like little like horror cameos and stuff in there, and just really altogether a solid movie.
Yeah. What is your number 13?
I don't remember if you mentioned it or not yet, but it's a really, really terrific movie, and that is Train to Busan. This was one that was like, I feel like we've done the zombie movies to death, no pun intended, but like, there's I feel like just so down whenever you hear like a new zombie thing, it's like, okay, it's another thing with zombies. Great. It's like, oh, this time it's zombies in a grocery store, or no, it's zombies in a high school or something. And so yeah, I didn't really care too much about it. Like when I heard the pitch for it or whatever, it's like zombies on a train. It's like, okay, who cares? But then started getting some positive buzz, and I watched it, and I was blown away. It's like super fun. It makes you care about the characters. The zombies are all done well, and it's just altogether a fantastic movie. Another Korean movie, I believe.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah, they're really killing it. I think I actually had like at least 3 or 4 like Korean movies on my list here.
A lot of good set pieces, a lot of good characters. You say it's a survival movie as well as just being a zombie movie. And there's a lot of problem solving, and some of the best stuff in zombie movies is the problem solving. I think in Night of the Living Dead, I think in Dawn of the Dead, what do all those movies have? They have problem solving. So you nail that, have some good characters, and you're onto something. So that's a good pick. My number 13 is The Invitation. This is the dinner party gone to hell, where our main character, played by Logan Marshall Green, this is the movie that kind of made me a fan of his. This and the TV show Quarry, which only lasted one season, but he's phenomenal in both. He goes to a dinner party with his girlfriend, and there's hints that they lost a child at some point throughout the movie, but there's just something kind of off about the whole thing. And it's a very slow burn, very sort of slow build of paranoia that something's not quite right. And I don't want to let it spoil where it goes, but let's just say something is not quite right. And, and the horror stuff comes into it as the movie goes on. But it's such a phenomenally directed and performed movie. From the director of Jennifer's Body, which I don't think any of us saw coming at the time.
No.
But here it is. And it's just one of the standouts of the decade. I highly recommend just throwing it on and just getting engrossed in the drama of it, because it's just a wonderful slow burn.
Yeah, there's another one that's kind of similar, if I remember correctly, like you were saying with Your Next. I think I might have just, I don't know if I went to the theater to see this to kill time, but I do think it was kind of just like I don't know, I got nothing to do, let me go check this out. And yeah, I just remember being in the theater and being blown away. It's just so well done and so tense, and again, it's just one of those movies where it's like, something's off, but you're not quite exactly sure what angle it's going for, and then when you do start to find out the pieces, it's revealed really well, and then it leads to so much great stuff. And this is just a fantastic movie. I love it.
Yep. What is your number 12?
Another movie from this year, and that would be Us. I really, really like this movie, and I know some people weren't as hot on it after Get Out and everything, but I think it was fantastic. There might be some like if you're looking at the mythology of it, whatever, there's probably like little holes and nitpicks and stuff you can find to be angry about, but I think it's so well directed and the performances are so great that I really, really love this movie. And it's like, already, I think we're all, really blown away by Peele from like Get Out and everything. But, the 1-2 combo of that and this, it's just like, sign me up for whatever this guy does. Like, I'm really invested in what he has to say. And I just can't say enough good things about this.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Us. I think Us has problems. I didn't like it as much as Get Out, but it's full of really effective scenes. There's a lot of great stuff in here.
Yeah.
There's a couple. I mean, I think there's like a sort of twist, and some of the mythology stuff at the end goes a bit too far for me. But but it's the sort of thing that I might not hate as much on a second viewing, because I know it's coming, and I'll just sort of like go with it. But there's a lot of great stuff in here, and again, a lot of bits of humor in here as well, I thought. And there's a lot of good little funny moments. My number 12 is a movie that I just watched this year as catch up to try and fit in some more notable movies that I got recommendations for the decade, and that is a film called They Look Like People, which I don't know if you've seen.
The name sounds familiar, but I don't think I've actually seen it.
Yeah, this is one we'll definitely have to do in the show at some point. This is a movie about two friends. One guy sort of comes to live with the other one, and one of them's kind of starting to be successful. Like, he's got an okay job, he's got his own apartment, it's just fine. The other guy's a bit of a loser, a bit of a drifter, but they're old friends from childhood. And basically, the one who's like sort of staying there, the drifter character, he hears voices, and it's basically trying to convince him that people have been replaced by either aliens or demons. And it's about him maybe going to do very extreme things, thinking that he's trying to defend himself in the world. But of course, we don't know throughout the film if it's really happening or if he's just going crazy. It is a wonderful film about mental illness. I think one of my favorite endings of anything on this list is the way this movie ends.
Interesting.
But I love the overall tone and feel. It reminds me almost a little bit of Primer, if you've ever seen that, in terms of the tone. which was a sort
I
of
don't
little.
think I have.
That's like an ultra low budget sci-fi movie.
Yeah,
And this
I've
is
heard of it again, but yeah.
Yeah, and this isn't sci-fi per se. This is definitely more towards horror, but
Mhm.
it's very much. Again, it's one of those things where it mixes the sort of horror stuff of like, oh, is there actually people being replaced, with also just raw humanity horror of like, is he this mentally ill that he might do something really dangerous?
Okay.
And it kind of does it. It's a really, again, it's really low budget. It's just a great little sort of 3-character show basically. But I thought it was really well directed and well performed, and the emotion of it really hit hard. So that's They Look Like People.
Cool. Yeah. Sounds interesting. I'll definitely have to check it out.
What is your number 11?
So, yeah, it's not going to be on your list because you haven't seen it yet. So we'll have to, but we'll get into it shortly. And that is The Lighthouse. And for the record, there was like a few things that I saw like early that I was thinking about putting on the list, but I only chose stuff that was actually in theaters. So like, stuff I saw at festivals.
Sure, yeah.
That hasn't officially come out.
Yeah,
there was a few.
Because we'll be counting all those for like our top 10 possibly of next year when they actually come out. Yeah.
Yeah, but Lighthouse did count because it did. Yeah, it was out in theaters over here. So
Lighthouse did come out. Yes, you can count it.
But I mean, since we haven't done the review yet, I probably won't go too much into it. Obviously, it's on my list, so that, especially high up, so that I love it. But man, just talk about just like amazing performances. Like obviously, Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are like great actors. Well, I guess maybe some people don't know about Pattinson for some reason, but he's phenomenal, and the look in it is so cool, and there's so much atmosphere, and it's so weird, and it's great. I can't wait to watch it again. It is, it's tense and creepy at some points, and it's pretty great.
I was deliberately ignoring you there, just in case you said anything I didn't want to hear. So, yes, very good. Yes, number 11. My number 11 is one that you said like 2 entries ago. That is Train to Busan, which is
nice. Okay.
Phenomenal little film, zombie film. I say little; it's actually probably a fairly big budget movie for Korea.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good for movie, good characters, good set pieces. There's scenes where they have to like get past because there's some little. Like, there's a scene where they have to like sort of go through a car of one of the train cars that's full of sleeping zombies, and there's the zombies have a couple of different rules in this movie, so there's like these mechanics they have to work around, which I love. I love when they set up mechanics and then they have the characters have to work around those mechanics. That's my favorite thing in horror movies. So, but yeah, basically said everything already that need to be said, but wonderful.
This is a version of Resident Evil 0 we should have gotten. Good version of zombies on a train.
I mean, the train part of that game's not bad. I mean,
yeah, it's probably the best part. But we got a sequel coming out soon, Peninsula.
Yep.
Also, definitely interested to see how that will turn out.
We'll see. I'm almost disappointed that they're not going the Die Hard / Under Siege route and picking a different vehicle, like zombies on a ship, or we'll do zombies on a plane or whatever. Like, just continue the thing, So the next one will be ship to Europe, and then the third one will be plane to Australia. Anyway, so what is your number? Oh, are we on the top 10 now? Oh my,
top 10.
We're on top 10. What was your number 10?
I'm trying to think how you felt about this movie. If I think we were both positive about it, but I don't know if you liked it as much as me.
Well, we'll see if I'm about to lay the smack down. So go on.
That's The Void.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I really, really, really dug this. It feels like such like a Carpenter homage, but in a good way. Like it doesn't feel like a ripoff or anything, but it's just oozing like style. It's got that kind of like it's modern times, but it does feel like very 80s-ish, and just terrific special effects, like all practical creature stuff. And like a weird kind of otherworldly, dimensionally storyline to it. But I really, really dig this movie.
I mean, I like the movie. I think some of the character stuff, that, or more specifically, the acting is not particularly good. But
Sure. Yeah.
no, I had a blast with the movie. I'll reveal that it's kind of an honorable mention for me. It was sort of like, like
Mhm.
somewhere in the 50s, kind of range when I was deciding things.
Yeah.
It could go up or down when I watch it again. But I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
I love the practical effects. I love the Lovecraftian kind of cosmic horror that it was teasing and stuff. I don't know if,
Yeah.
I mean, top 10 material. I don't know if I'd ever get that high on it, but like, fair
I
play?
mean,
Fair play?
yeah, no, it just really worked for me. It's just a lot of stuff that I love and done really well.
Yeah. My number 10. So, Tim, you're familiar with the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, of course.
Yeah, we just finished our complete
Oh.
rewatch of it, and we're a few episodes into Angel now, so
Oh, but you should have done them side by side so the crossovers would sync up.
yeah, it's a little. I didn't feel like looking up the exact like order.
It's really well. Season 4 and 1 is really easy. It's just alternate. You just do Buffy, Angel, Buffy, Angel, Buffy, Angel all the way through. It's easy. Anyway,
All right.
so yes, had to also Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Angel, of course, the spin-off. Interesting character, and that character's favorite song is
Wait, Angel?
Angel's favorite song.
Uh, it's been too long. I don't remember.
Well, when you get to early season 2, you're going to find out because it's Oh Mandy.
Oh,
My number 10 is Mandy,
Yeah.
baby.
all I could think of was that song that the first was singing to Spike in like season 7 that would make him vamp out.
Oh, right.
That was all I had in my head. I was like, "You talking about that?" But
No.
I know that Mandy's great though. Please
Oh, yeah, Mandy,
talk
yes.
about it.
Nicolas Cage at his most craziest with the director of Beyond the Black Rainbow, which, for the record, did appear in my top 25 sci-fi of the decade as well, just FYI.
Ooh, okay.
But Mandy, of course, veers more towards the horror, and it's Nicolas Cage, it's weird Cenobite bikers, it's a cult, it is the murder of his wife and the vengeance that he will wrath upon it. If Nicolas Cage sticking his nose in a mountain of cocaine that's on like a piece of broken mirror isn't enough to sell you on this movie, if him making his own axe, which actually honestly isn't that far away from the Slayer scythe from Buffy, now that you've made me think of that, and if all that isn't enough, if the fact that he lives in Crystal Lake, like just all these things, like the movie is absolutely batshit in the best way possible, and it is a trip of a time. And again, it's not for everyone. It is a very art house kind of, like a lot of like weird lighting choices, weird slow paced scenes. It's just that kind of movie, and I love it.
What's funny is it's like a weird mix that totally works, but it is like a mix of the slow burn art house with just like the like batshit crazy action movie. But it blends like together so well. Like, yeah, there's like these slow kind of quiet scenes, but then like you said, they're like amped up by like these trippy, drugged out, biker, like action fighting stuff, and it's just really well done. And man, it's like this might be one of my favorite like movie viewing experiences. Like, I got to, I guess I'll brag a little bit, but like, I saw this and then got to see like Q&A afterwards with like the director, Nick Cage. And man, he is like, obviously I wasn't right next to him or anything, but seeing him in person is just such a trip. He's such like a weird dude, but in every, way that you love. Like it's so great.
It's not an act is what you're saying. It's
no,
Nicolas Cage is Nicolas Cage. Okay.
He showed up in a, he was wearing like a gold suit when he showed up. It's like a gold suit and like red sunglasses indoors at night. It was great.
Of course he is. He's a big Superman fan because he had Action Comics #1 for a long time at least. I don't know if he sold it eventually for the alimony money, but
didn't it get stolen?
It did,
and then they found it, and
yeah, you got it back. I don't know if he sold it after that though. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he just kept it. But hey.
I love the little bit of like I feel like we're getting like full like Nick Cage, like horror Nick Cage these last couple of years. Like like obviously this was a big one. Like Mom and Dad wasn't as good, but he was good at some points in it. And then got Color Out of Space next year, and I think another one next year too. So yeah, I'm loving this. I already love Nick Cage, but man, seeing him just doing all this horror stuff is great.
He's finally hitting his stride while he's pushing 60. That's what he's
Yeah.
finally hitting his stride. All right, what's your number 9, Timmy?
You just mentioned it a little bit ago, but my number 9 is The Invitation.
Yes.
Yeah, so I won't harp on it too long, but again, it's just so well done, and I think a thing that's great about it is, yeah, there is so much about it is, stuff that's being revealed, but it's still a blast to watch even when you know what's going to happen, because the performances are just so great, and just the act of storytelling, the way they slowly reveal stuff and pace everything, and it's really, really done well. And yeah, it's I don't know if it was like the biggest movie, so if there's anyone there that missed this, like, do yourself a favor and go out and watch it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, Invitation. I invite you to a good movie. It's called The Invitation. My number 9 is one you've brought up already, and that is Evil Dead, 2013's Evil Dead. Now, I this was another one I was surprised by. I didn't know what to expect from it, and found myself just so thoroughly into how insanely violent it was, and just how I loved how it subverted things, and how the person who was originally infected ended up being the hero of the movie by the end. And I guess minor spoilers there, but like, it kind of flipped things on its head, and that last like 15-minute section, and it added a lot to the mythology as well. It added to the reason why the book wants to do this. There was like more of a purpose to it, and I kind of liked that purpose. And that entire last 15 minutes I thought was just batshit crazy and in a fun way, and just so much blood. So good. I love, it made me love Jane Levi, who I've seen in other things since then. I think Fede Alvarez is a great director. I enjoyed Don't Breathe a lot. Not as good as this, but as it was earlier on my list. But this is a blast. So Evil Dead.
Yeah, it definitely put him on the map, where it's like, if whatever he's got, coming next, definitely interested in.
We will be watching. Yes. What is your number 8?
Another recent one from this year. I absolutely loved Dr. Sleep. I'm a whatever we said, a member of King's Court, or whatever you want to say, but like I'm so impressed that they were able to make a good movie, because I like the book, but I know other people aren't hot on it, but it is such a weird concept where it's like a sequel to one of the most like famous, probably like well-beloved horror movies / books of all time, and you do a sequel that's about like psychic vampires, and it's like, wait, what? But he managed to make it work.
For the record, it's not vampires who are psychic. It's
right.
It's psychics who feed off psychic energy, therefore psychic vampires. Just a way to clarify that.
Sure. But Flanagan just does such a good job, and I always say this about Flanagan too, where it's like, he's a guy that like I did not like at first, and then each subsequent movie he's made, I've liked better and better, to the point where it's like, wow, he's like my dude now. Like, I'm excited for anything he does, and I think he gets King really well. I mean, this and Gerald's Game are both stuff that I think almost no one else could have filmed, and he managed to knock both of them out of the park. And I know, there's some people might call like fan servicey stuff in here that maybe didn't work for them, but it totally worked for me. And he made not just a great adaptation of this book, but also a great sequel to the original movie, and the way he was able to blend the book and the movie, because there's big differences, like really, really impressive. And I just absolutely love this. I can't wait till it comes out and I can watch the 3.5 hour director's cut.
Oh God. I liked a lot of the movie. I didn't like all of it. I wasn't a big fan of the last like 30 minutes, but I get why you like it. Enjoy it. Have your Dr. Sleep. All right.
Thank you.
My number 8 is, he's a maniac on the floor, and he's killing like he's never killed before. Maniac.
Good job.
The Maniac remake. It's all in the killer's POV. I kind of said this earlier, but it makes you feel so grimy, and I didn't know that this was what it was before I went to watch it. I wanted to see it, and I went with some friends at the time, and the opening scene, because there's so many, like Halloween opens with a POV scene, right? So it has this opening scene where he's stalking this woman, and it's like POV, and it ends with him killing her. Goes to the title or whatever, and then the movie continues, and I'm like, wait, it's still in POV. Is this whole thing in POV? And sure enough, barring one or two special moments where it shakes things up, it is. It's the killer's POV, and it feels so weirdly intimate in a really sort of like disturbing way that just makes it work. Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's just a unique feeling of a horror movie compared. And, I'd say it kind of takes what you feel in Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer and kind of flips it to a new thing, but that's the best thing I could sort of think to describe it in terms of how it makes you feel. But such a memorable experience. I was so enthralled in it when I was watching it. So great. And I'll say it, my favourite Elijah Wood movie. Screw those Lord of the Rings crap fests. All 12 hours of that walking to Mount Mordor Doom or whatever.
Well, we'll see if some movies next year, like if Come to Daddy will be able to topple it. But
what was that, Tim? Did you just tell me to come to Daddy? What? I will not come to Daddy. You are not my daddy, okay?
No, I mean, yeah, I just talked about it a little earlier, but yeah, no, it's a great movie, and yeah, talk about like something so unique and original, and yeah, it's fantastic.
Yes, there's no daddies here, and there'll be no coming. Thank you very much. At least if it is happening, keep it to yourself, Tim.
I'll do my best. I can't make any promises.
What's your number 7?
You just mentioned it a little bit ago, and that's Mandy. Yeah, I mean, just echoing everything you said. It has such a cool style to it. The performances are phenomenal. It's a really unforgettable movie, and yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, my God, we didn't even mention the Cheddar Goblins, but there's so much stuff. I think you brought up when you said it was like trippy. I think that's the perfect way to describe it. It's like, yeah, it feels drug-like, but in such a good, engrossing way. And
yeah,
it's awesome.
Nor did we mention the biggest chainsaw that the world's ever seen at one point. So there's that. My number 7 is a film, again, another catch-up one. When I was doing all my catch-up for this year, obviously I had a couple that appeared early in the list, but there's 2. I had Daily People, which obviously was number 12, and then I had this one, which blew me away. And this goes again back to the Get Out thing of having different voices and having like different perspectives. This is The Transfiguration, which we absolutely have to do in the show at some point. And this is a movie about a teenage kid who thinks he's a vampire. And he's this kid who lives with his bigger brother. His parents aren't there. It does deal, he's a black kid, and it deals a lot with like how he's perceived because of that. He's growing up. There's like gangs in the street that he lives in, and how he has to avoid them, and how he kind of gets in, like how they end up interacting with him. There's all this stuff, and the movie's like, it's this really sad thing about how his belief in being a vampire kind of ties to what his self-worth is and what he believes his purpose or lack of purpose in the world is, and it's a really tragic watch, to be honest. It's a really depressing movie, but like you really find yourself rooting for him and you want him to like do better. And Chloe Levine's in it, who I've seen pop up in a lot of things recently. She's kind of the love interest, and she's a little bit older than him, but they can have this bond. And the kid also wins me over from his taste in vampires as well. Like he like name drops every good vampire movie, and throws like Twilight under the bus. It's so good. But it's just a really good like horror drama. This is one of these ones where the horror part of it is almost more to do with the human horror. It's just how bad people are in the world as opposed to the actual horror. But that said, though, there's a couple of good vampire scenes too. So I highly recommend this. This really blew me away when I saw it this year.
Yeah, I heard really good things about it. It's something I've wanted to watch and just never got around to it. So I look forward to checking it out at some point. But I mean, it sounds great. Yeah. Yeah,
we'll have to do it in the show at some point. It's really, really good. What is your number 6?
I think you mentioned it early on in your list, on the first episode.
Probably in the correct place, but on you go.
For me, that's The Ritual. I absolutely love this movie. I think, and it was like it was a big surprise for me too, because it was just something that seemed like casually dropped on Netflix, and then I was like, all right, yeah, let's check this out, and I was really blown away. I mean, it's just kind of like a simple story, just some friends, kind of basically like hiking and getting lost, but then like the supernatural and kind of like monstery elements I think are so cool. There's like creature designs in this that feel like nothing I've seen in any other like horror movie before. I just think it's really well done, and then there is an actual like human element to it that I think is handled like really well. They're dealing with the fallout of a tragedy that at the beginning of the movie kind of seems out of nowhere and kind of weird, but it pays off. I feel like once it starts coming back later on in the movie. I actually just ordered the book that's based on, because I really want to read it, because I love this movie so much.
All right. I liked it a lot. I had it in my sort of lower 20s, but yeah, you did love it.
Thanks.
My number six. My number six is Midsummer. One of the newer entries on here. I like this more than Hereditary. I thought this was a step up from Hereditary. I thought the way its story was told, and just how tight the story was, just what it was clearly about, was so well defined by the end that it was almost not a metaphor anymore, and just was. But like, it just worked. Everything about it just worked. Like, it's exceptionally paced and directed. There were so many hints early on, and like, you feel so anxious and uncomfortable right from the start of the movie as soon as you realize, like, that this couple and the way they talk to each other every time, like he has to kind of give in and like sort of say, yeah, you can come and do this thing, or you can be a part of this, and he clearly doesn't want her there, and she wants comfort from him. She wants to be assured and like made to feel wanted, and it just, you feel that's the real horror of the movie. Is the social horror, the romantic horror, if you will. That's what I'm going to call this. This is a romantic horror movie.
Yeah, it's so well done, and then like Hereditary has like just some of the most like awkward like scenes I've ever seen, and then like you see this where it's like, oh man, he found even like new ways to be to make you like socially uncomfortable, and just whenever they had stuff of just like, these people, they should not be in a relationship, but neither one is willing to say it. And the way it comes out is just handled so beautifully. And it's funny, we live in Pasadena now, and they have like this big thing called like the Rose Parade that they do on New Year's Day, and they already started like blocking off like some of the streets and stuff for it. And my wife was telling me about how they elect a rose queen for it, and all I could think about was this movie. I was like, ooh, okay. The rose queen, you say?
Yes. So what ex-boyfriend's being
exactly.
dealt with. That's all I'll say. I'll say anything else. No, Midsummer was great. So it shot quite high on my list pretty quickly. So what is your number 5?
This was one that I think I actually had it as my number 1 for a bit, and then I switched some things around, but it's really good. And that is A Cabin in the Woods. I mean, it's just fantastic. It's funny, it's meta, it's got great performances, just really cool idea. The last act gets so crazy, and they do such a good job of like setting up all these things that you want to see and then really pay it off. But it's just, man, really one of the best of the decade. Obviously why it's on the list, but man, it's such a like cool, fun movie. And I mean, I'm sure everyone knows what it is, but basically it's, I mean, maybe I don't know if you really want to give anything away, but it's great.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
it's about a fabricated horror scenario where we see the control room that's kind of running it, and that's where a lot of the comedy comes from.
yeah,
Jenkins and uh,
Whitford.
Whitford
Is
are,
that Bradley
yeah,
Whitford?
Bradley Whitford. Yeah, those two are hilarious and wonderful in that movie, and it just
Yeah.
the way it plays upon horror tropes is just
Mhm.
so good.
Yeah.
But
I'm
no,
not familiar with the people that made it, but I would definitely check out anything else they've done.
you're not familiar with the people who made it.
No, I don't know who wrote it or.
Are you cracking a joke here? Or are you setting me up? Or like, because if you weren't aware, it's directed by Drew Goddard and co-written by Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon, who happened to create the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Of course, I was setting you up. I knew. Obviously, I knew.
And Drew Goddard went on to do Bad Times at El Real, which I enjoyed a lot, and I will look
That's
forward to
good. Yeah.
anything he's making. Obviously, I'm looking forward to anything Joss Whedon's making. You know, I'm happy about both these parties involved.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So no, good stuff. My number 5,
Mm.
and this is out of the rest here. This is maybe the one that you won't have at all on your list, and that is the Neon Demon.
Oh, okay.
I'm a Refn fan. I enjoy the works of Nicholas Winding Refn. I enjoy the colors. I enjoy the slow moving cameras. I enjoy the sitting and just watching in silence for like a minute before something happens. I enjoy all of this stuff. And this is a horror movie. I mean, it's kind of got like some implied witches and sacrifice and stuff, but ultimately it's a horror movie about how awful people can be to each other and how the industry of modeling in LA can absolutely turn people into monsters. That's what this movie's about, and how your soul is sold by trying to give yourself into it, and then you're just consumed by everyone else. So, Neon Demon is everything I love in a Refn movie, and it was hypnotic, which is I would describe a lot of his stuff as hypnotic, but Neon Demon is my number 5.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm like. I wouldn't say that I loved it, but I also wouldn't say that I like hated it. I mean, I forget where I landed, when I first saw it. Because did we do this on the show? I don't remember.
I think we did. I think this was the
Okay.
Screams.
So I don't know. Maybe someone can call me out. I don't know if I remember saying I hated it, but like it's there's definitely some good stylistic stuff to it. I just think because I actually haven't seen like a ton of his stuff. I mean, this and Drive are the two big ones that I've seen, but I mean, I like Drive a lot. I do like his style, but yeah, just altogether as a movie, I wasn't like over the top about it.
Joe, I'm actually doubting myself now. I'm not sure if we did do it in the show. Hold on. I'm checking. Where's that handy list I made? Damn it. Damn it. My system's failed me.
Oh my god.
My system has failed me. All right, I can't check right now. It's going to take too long. All right.
That's all right.
Okay, so that was my number 5. What is your number 5?
Well, you mean my number 4?
Sorry, number 4. Yeah, sorry, number 4.
Yeah. You mentioned a little earlier, but that is Get Out. I mean,
Get Out.
Just phenomenal, and again, thinking about the best movies of the decade, like I'm trying to think of stuff that like really stands out, and kind of when I think about the decade, like this is one that I feel like it encompasses like a lot of the stuff. Like again, we have all the social issues, and we have the talented new horror voice coming in, and it's phenomenal. Like there's some funny parts to it. There's great horror parts to it. It's just really, really, really executed well on all fronts.
Yeah. Obviously, we talked about it already, but yeah, Get Out deserves to be represented here for sure. My number 4 is one that you had ages ago because you're a fool, and that is Insidious. I I freaking love Insidious, and again, talk about being surprised when I went to see this. I saw this the same day as X-Men First Class, and got really confused in X-Men First Class why I recognised Rose Byrne from something, because it was this movie that I watched literally right before it. This is so playful. It's got so much mythology. It builds all this stuff up. This idea of the further, Brennan Lynn Shay. The idea that there is a core being that's kind of like after something specific, but there's all these different entities that are involved, and it just, I don't know, like sometimes like a simple strict haunted house movie can get a bit dull to me because they're so overdone, but totally. This is so like just let's just play with this. Let's just do all these things. I loved everything this did in the back half. I thought it had some good scares in the first half. I thought the back half was even better. So Insidious really, I wasn't expecting to put it this high, but when I was sorting my list out, I was like, you know what, I love Insidious, and this was 2011, so it really kind of kicked the decade off in a big way, sort of early on. So there you go, Insidious.
From the director of Saw.
He's come a long way. He's come a long way. Hopefully, we can enjoy his next horror movie before he gets back to doing Aquaman, because Aquaman was mediocre. What would you put in number 3, Timothy?
So another one you already mentioned, and that would be Hereditary. Again, Ari Aster just really like came onto the scene and with just some terrific movies, and I really do like I'd say I'm the opposite of you. I love Midsommar, but Hereditary for me is still a little better. I know the end gets a little crazy, but I'm totally cool with it. And again, there's just some terrific horror moments, but again, it's the the real life horror, the horror of mental illness and family issues and awkwardness and saying horrible things that you can't take back, and it's just so well done. And I don't think we really mentioned, but the Toni Collette's performance is just just amazing in this.
I mean, is it just me, Tim, or have we noticed a trend here? I think there's been maybe about 5 or 6 of my picks in my top 20 where I've said that the horror is not as like,
that's true.
It's not like a serial killer. It's not a monster. It's not any of this. It's more about the humanity horror. It's the more down to earth horror, and it's the sort of things that I can see some people arguing that some of these aren't horror movies. I mean, not Hereditary. Sure. Hereditary is definitely a horror movie, but like I can see people arguing with me that Neon Demon is not a horror movie, or that The Little People's not a horror movie, or that whatever. Like I can see people arguing that some of these aren't horror movies, which they're wrong.
Yeah.
But
no, I do think they're wrong, and it's crazy, but it's almost like maybe if your movie's about something, it makes it good. I don't know. Maybe that's a crazy idea, but no, like
Tim, my favorite thing about you, Tim, is just how much of a radical you are.
But no, I don't think you can really like argue against that stuff. Like if you're just like a dude that's like, well, no, man, unless there's a guy in a mask with a chainsaw killing people, it's not horror. It's like, all right, it can be many different things. And it's like I think that's why these later movies kind of stand out, because they do horror well, but they also have like this extra human element added to it that kind of boosts it and makes it a little more like it's more of a fulfilling watch. It's not like fast food's delicious, and who doesn't love to eat it, but would you take that over like a very nice prepared like full course meal?
Depends who cooked it.
I'm cooking it.
I'll take the fast food, thank you very much. I don't like the smell of what Tim's cooking. All right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's all I have to say.
You're done with okay. My number 3 is one that you brought up recently, and that is The Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods, and this wasn't a surprise per se, because I mean I knew the people involved. I was excited. This was one that was shelved for like 2 years before they brought it out.
And that was actually a little confusing at first, because I had to look it up, because I was like, all right, so need to make sure it's in this decade, but I forget, like, is the release date going to count for, like, when it was originally made or whatever, or But I was happy when I found out like okay, no, it counts.
Yeah, no, it came out in 2012. That's the
Okay.
year that I would count Cabin in the Woods with.
Yeah.
But like Cabin in the Woods is just so extremely playful. I mean, we just did a review before we recorded this countdown today, and we were talking about how it didn't explore its concept enough, and how it sort of fell back into these safe like tropes instead of actually exploring the cool idea it had. This is a movie that has an idea that the horror movie situation that these like five college students are experiencing is a setup, and that there's people in a control room controlling it, and it goes as far as it can with it. It does everything it can with it, from the betting board, from the chaos in the third act, which I will not spoil because it's wonderful, from the references to various movies, to the crazy old man who tries to warn them about the place they're going to, and like the stuff that happens with him in the movie. Like everything it does, like this is clearly, even though it's critical of horror being the same and not evolving, it's also clearly written by people who love horror movies.
Yeah.
Like it's both. It loves horror, but also criticizes it for not moving forward enough, and it's wonderful as that. Wonderful.
Yeah, and I feel like there's like so many people nowadays. I feel like try to do the meta thing, and I don't think it rarely comes off that great. But this is just one of those prime examples of it's meta. It's doing a take on the genre, but it's like hitting the nail on the head perfectly. And even if you don't even look at it that like through that lens, it's still like just a fantastical movie, and it really it sets up so much stuff, and like this movie probably has like some of the best payoffs like in any horror movie. Like there's so much stuff that you see that you're like, oh, like that looks pretty cool, but I don't know if we'll see it. And then it's like, no, like they give you everything you want.
Yeah, that third act does not hold back. It is absolutely wonderful. I love the first Scream movie. I do, but I think this is a better Scream than Scream.
Yeah, I'd say that.
So there it is. What is your number 2, Timmy? Drop that deuce on us.
I went back and forth on this a lot. My number 1 and my number 2, I probably switched places like at least 2 or 3 times, but this is where it landed. So my number 2 is It Follows. It's I think we're both pretty positive on it. It's just it has such a good style direction to it. It feels like kind of like it feels like timeless. Like it takes place in modern times, but kind of feels 80s-ish. It has like great score, and then just a simple idea that's executed really, really, really well. Genuinely creepy stuff. I think Michael Cera was in the theater when I watched this. So that'll usually help your theater going experience.
All I'm thinking now, Tim, is how like Anne from Arrested Development would actually be able to defeat this ghost, because they would just forget she exists.
That's true. But no, this is great, and this is one like I've rewatched like endlessly. Like it sucks a lot of the time. I don't have as much time to like rewatch stuff as I used to. Like when you're a teenager or 20s or something, like when you like a movie, that means you've seen it like 10 times. By the time it's been out for a year. But this is one I can rewatch like pretty much at any point. It's one that's like you get excited if you know someone that hasn't seen it yet. It's like, all right, shut up, we're watching it. It's really good. And again,
I was gonna say I'd be surprised if anything on this top 50 I'd seen more than 3 times, and for the most part it'll be 1 or 2.
It's unfortunate because there was a time when all of these I probably would have watched like 5 or 6 times, but a lot of them unfortunately I've only seen once, and then that's one of the fun things too when you're going through the list is you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I gotta rewatch this, man. Like this is good.
What's good about that though is that when you do finally get around to rewatching some of these, it'll be so long you've forgotten so much that it'll be almost like reliving it for the first time again.
Totally.
So there's an upside to it.
Yeah, and again, the last thing I'll mention again about it is it has it works so much in terms of like metaphor and having like social relevance to it. Because we're dealing in an age where there's like a lot of issues with like sex and like like maybe like women like being called out for like acting in certain ways and stuff, and it feels like
slut shaming is the term you're looking for,
yeah,
Tim. Yes.
yeah. But it does feel like kind of like a sexually freeing kind of movie and stuff. So again, yeah, you can't say enough great things about it.
All right. So my number 2 is one that you have brought up before, and this is one that you even questioned if it belonged here. So it definitely belongs here because my number 2, and that is Under the Skin, which is so like brooding as a movie. It's so brooding, and it's so hypnotic, and so again, it kind of takes that like almost POV thing. It's not shot in POV, but it's like you're following the killer, you're following the evil alien who's like going around, kidnapping men, and it's such a beautiful film. Like there's so many shots in this that I love. Whether it's on the beach, the ending, and the sort of this it's not quite snow, it's more like ash that's falling, but like like just all these beautiful moments. The visuals are stunning. But like I say, the mood is unparalleled. The mood is something else. No, it's downright unique. It's very Kubrick, and I love it. So I'll just leave it there because we this has been on long enough. So
I forget. Did Matt watch this one?
I made Matt watch this for review, and he was not super enthused about it. Let's just say that. So we're at the point now where we both have our number ones to give. So what we're going to do is Tim is going to recap his entire list, just quickly run down them, and he will end by revealing his number 1. So start from number 50. Off you go.
All right, so that is The Hallow, It Chapter 1, Terrifier, Child's Play, Tucker and Dale versus Evil, Sadako versus Kayako, Nightmare Cinema, Unfriended, The Final Girls, Curse of Chucky, The Boy, of course, maybe too low, Cult of Chucky, Satan's Slaves, Unfriended Dark Web, Late Phases, Southbound, Paranormal Activity 3, 10 Cloverfield Lane, Veronica, A Dark Song, May the Devil Take You, Insidious, Revenge, I Saw the Devil, You're Next, Spring, Gerald's Game, Maniac, Conjuring, Insidious Chapter 3, Midsommar, Under the Skin, Autopsy of Jane Doe, Evil Dead, The Conjuring, The Wailing, A Girl Walks Home at Night, Train to Busan, Us, The Lighthouse, The Void, The Invitation, Doctor Sleep, Mandy, Ritual, A Cabin in the Woods, Get Out, Hereditary, It Follows, and of course my number 1, Truth or Dare. Now, this was a movie that...
Don't be a dick.
No, if you notice, that's probably one very notable thing that was left off the list, and that you mentioned a little earlier, and that is The Witch. Of course.
I saw it coming. I provide visual proof of my guess.
No, I absolutely love this movie. It's I think it's one of the best examples of showing like how paranoia can like escalate, and because everything like starts off very innocent, and then it just like amps it up, and then like it looks so good, and like the dialogue feels so authentic, and it is a slow burn, but then when there is the horror elements, they're done so well. I love the ending. Obviously, I gotta talk about the goats. I mean, Black Phillip, if he's not like the horror star of the decade, I don't know who is. My God.
Well, here's the answer to the question. What is Tim? What would Tim put higher than dolls, since he has such a doll fetish? Well, it turns out that goats still reign supreme. If anything, I am shocked that Hagazusa with the goat masturbation scene isn't the number 1 film, to be honest. But Black Phillip from The Witch has graced us with number 1. So
yeah. But no, I mean, I absolutely love it. I've watched it multiple times. It's stood with me, and I think it's just the filmmaking is just so good about it's just like it's masterful, and it feels so of the time period. Like it's like if they had a time machine and they actually filmed something from like this period, it would feel authentic. Like creepy twins, and it's so good. And again, I went back and forth about this in my number 2 quite often, but I think it just edges out, because if I don't know, it just they're both great, but I don't know, it works for me. But all right, you can go now.
All right, so I'm going to recap my 50. Pay attention. 50, Paranormal Activity 3, 49, The Conjuring, 48, Howl, 47, Insidious Chapter 3, 46, Krampus, 45, The Perfection, 44, Late Phases, 43, Cult of Chucky, 42, Texas Chainsaw 3D Baby, 41, Unfriended, 40, The Black Coat's Daughter, aka February, 39, I Am Not a Serial Killer, 38, Cam, 37, A Quiet Place, 36, Revenge, 35, The Monster, 34, The Conjuring 2, 33, Eyes of My Mother, 32, 10, Cloverfield Lane, 31, Overlord, 30, Hush, 29, The Ritual, 28, It Comes at Night, 27, Don't Breathe, 26, Raw, 25, Creep, 24, The Final Girls, 23, The Babysitter, 22, Terrifier, 21, Get Out, 20, Hereditary, 19, A Woman Walks Home Alone at Night, 18, Split, 17, Darling, 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 never mind. Number 16, The Witch, 15, Happy Death Day, 14, You're Next, 13, The Invitation, thanks for it, Tim, 12, They Look Like People, 11, Train to Busan, 10, Mandy, 9, Evil Dead, 8, Maniac, 7, The Transfiguration, 6, Midsummer, 5, The Neon Demon, 4, Insidious, 3, The Cabin in the Woods, 2, Under the Skin, and my number 1, of course, is It Follows.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
You don't have anything to show on the screen now? No, I guessed this.
Well, it was the wrong guess. So.
What was the guess? What was the guess?
You know that movie, The Boy? Right?
Yes.
Of course, I knew it was It Follows, but then I was trying to hastily find like I don't have a piece of paper with me, so I was trying to find like something that said The Boy that I could show. But no, yeah, I don't. Yeah, this is not a surprise at all.
Yeah, It Follows is like was transcendent. To use a pretentious word, it was transcendent when I saw it. No, it's everything I want in a horror movie. It had Carpenter-esque homages with the way it was shot, with all the long takes and the constant feeling of like movement. The premise is so simple, the idea that this thing will keep coming for you no matter where you are. It'll just keep walking towards you, and it can look like anyone. So you have this main character who has to deal with that, but she enlists the help of her friends and her sister, and eventually it becomes this proactive movie that I love in horror films, where they look at the rules and they say, how can we beat this thing? And they try and problem solve, and they try and figure it out. It goes to dark places. The music is wonderful, the score, the synth stuff is phenomenal from Disaster Piece. Really, really good stuff. It's everything I want. It's perfect. It's a perfect horror movie, and it's my number 1 of the decade. And there wasn't even a debate. You said you swapped number 1 and 2 a lot. I never did. Like, there was one thing I knew. I swapped like 2 through like 10. I was all over the place with. Number 1, I knew was It Follows. The second I sat down.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise because I mean, I feel like we talk about it quite a bit, and it's kind of like a go-to example. I feel like a lot of the times if there are other movies that maybe has like if they don't do things as well, like we'll use like It Follows as like, you know, a great example of being like, oh no, like yeah, this is how you do this kind of thing or whatever. But it's I mean, everything about it just really comes together, and it's I don't think it's surprising. I think it is a standout of the decade for sure. But yeah.
Yeah, and given that it was your number 2, that means by averages it is our combined number 1. So it's also Screams After Midnight's best film of the decade.
I'm completely fine with that for sure.
And I think number 2 would be Cabin in the Woods, because I had that at 3 and you had that at 5.
Yeah.
I think that'd be number 2 if we were using like a voting system here to like combine them. I think that'd be number 2. But anyway, I'll stop there. I can't remember all of them.
Hey,
but
I mean, I'm definitely fine with that though.
Yeah,
yeah, that's not a.
Oh yeah, not a bad list by any means. And luckily, I give The Boy no points, so that won't make it. That's fine. I won't make it. So no, there you go. That's been a journey. That's the top 50 horror movies of the decade, and it's so hard to decide, like, or even predict like what we'll be talking about in 10 years time, because we barely know half of what's coming out next year, never mind the 9 years following it. So
yeah,
we'll find out. Well, that's going to be part of the fun, and it is our ode to keep up to date with movies and try not to miss things and keep watching them and keep having a sufficient list at the end of the year, and hopefully by the time we get to the end of the decade, know exactly what we're doing. So, but yeah, that is it. So I don't know if you have any honorable mentions you want to throw out, just if you have any sort of off the top of your head. I think I deleted all the ones that just missed my list, so I can't remember any of them now. So I don't think I do, but
Sure. Well, I know one that I'll give two quick ones that didn't make my list. I think they're phenomenal movies, but I just think they some people might try to argue for them, but I think they're like more comedic and stuff. And that's I think What We Do in the Shadows is absolutely amazing, but I don't even really think of it as horror comedy. I think just straight up comedy, even though it's like obviously vampires and stuff, but I think just having vampires doesn't automatically make it horror. You know what I mean?
I get it. I would add on to that I think the show has surpassed the movie, but
show is great. It's really good. Yeah,
I like the show a lot.
Yeah, but that, and then also this is kind of a weird one. But One Cut of the Dead, I think I've seen other people put on lists,
Sure.
and again, go into it as cold as possible. So I'm not gonna say anything about it, but other than like I don't really consider it too much of a horror movie, but I still think it is a really really good movie that's worth seeing. I think well, you mentioned Creep. I think the sequel is really good as well.
Yeah, sequel's good.
So I'd give that an honorable mention, but yeah, maybe not. It doesn't need to be on the list. I think one thing that obviously it's not a movie, so it wouldn't be on the list, but I feel like the last season of Twin Peaks is like,
oh yeah, baby,
some of the horror elements in that, like, you almost wish it was a movie so it could be on the list, but I'll give that an honorable mention if that works.
Hey, I'm actually feeling about it. It did very well on the top 25 TV shows of the decade that I did with Connor. It did very well on that list.
Nice. No. And not I don't think it's necessarily great, but I'll give a little bit of a shout out to the Let the Right One In remake. I think that was this decade.
It was. Yeah.
Not as good as the original, but as far as remakes go, it's not bad, not horrible.
Yeah, if we're picking different mediums, then Resident Evil 2 remake, baby.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely, yeah, would deserve to be on there.
Yeah, nice and high, please. Thank you, and kindly. But yeah, so that is our top 50s of the decade. Obviously, we still have stuff of the year to do, our best of 2019. That will be a couple of months from now, because we're going to catch up with 2019 movies that we've not gotten around to yet over the next couple of months. And sometime early March, we're going to do our top 10 of 2019 and our worst 10 of 2019. So hopefully by then we'll have 10 good movies to put in that list, because right now I don't think we do. But hopefully by the time we've caught up on a lot of the stuff that sort of slipped through the cracks, didn't get theatre releases, all that sort of stuff, we'll be able to have a more definitive top 10 of the year. But this is, and obviously some of those might, if we redid this list, might squeeze onto it, but
Sure.
we have to put a cut off somewhere and just do it.
Right.
So the decade is done now, and
But if there is anything like noticeable that people think we might have missed or something, definitely let us know.
Oh yeah. You can comment below and let us know what your lists are. Give us your top 10s, top 20s, top 50s, whatever you want to do in the comments. So so that's what's coming up soon. Also, I'll just remind you right here that the schedule going forward has changed a little bit in January, and the way it's going to work is that there will be a weekly episode, of course, as there always has been. Every Monday you'll get an episode of Screams After Midnight, but twice a month you'll also get a second episode, and those two episodes that are the sort of the secondary ones will be up early on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV at the $5 tier if you want to go over there and support us. But that'll be up early for $5 patrons. $1 patrons, of course, get access to the exclusive bonus episodes, so that's like a 7th movie a month. So there'll be seven episodes per month, one of which is Patreon only, 2 of which will be early on Patreon but are still there for everyone, and then the regular 4 weekly episodes. Right? Was that confusing? Probably, but just more consistent episodes. Now it does mean a smaller Octoberthon because we won't have as much time to like bank tons of episodes, but you'll get more regular episodes, and we're hoping that will mean that we'll keep up with new releases well, and also be able to actually do some of these like back catalogue franchise movies that we keep pushing back.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So that is the plan. So. Yeah. Look forward to that. So yeah, go to Patreon and see if you want to support everything we do and keep the content coming. Thank you to our Patreon producers that I've not thanked yet, so I'll mention them: David Short, Alison M. Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, and Tyler Hess. They're patrons at the $20 and up tier, so thank you to them for being producers. But yeah,
patrons of the decade.
Patrons of the decade. There you go. So yeah, guys, on Screams Midnight at Twitter at Screams Midnight. You can get us there. Like and subscribe. Ding the bell on YouTube for notifications. Share us on your social medias. Rate the podcast on Apple Podcast. Helps us out a lot. Give us 5 stars. More people will find us that way. But that is us. That has been this other second epic length half of the top 50 horror movies of the 2010s. And we'll be back with another countdown. Probably, we may do one before October. Maybe we'll do one early summer. Because there's fun to do. Maybe do a smaller one. Early summer or something, if we think of a little small, like top 20 zombie movies or something like that. I don't know. Look,
10 episodes of Buffy.
Hey, I could do a top 10 of Buffy if you want. I mean, don't tempt me.
Yeah, I could too.
Don't tempt me. We could do top 10 Resident Evil villains.
Oh, okay, interesting.
There you go. We could do that.
Because I was thinking before of like, yeah, it might be fun to do like a top 10 of like survival horror games, but then it's like, well, I mean, is it gonna be like 7 Resident Evil games? Like
it'll be like 7 Resident Evil games and 3 Silent Hills. That'll be the list. Yeah, I don't know if that works, but maybe we could do like top 10 monsters in Resident Evil, or top 10 I don't know Resident Evil characters, or top whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
Top 10 save room themes. I could do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna do a smaller countdown sometime early summer to mix it up a little bit, and then do a big one for the Octoberthon. But that is us. That has been second half of our top 50 of the 2010s. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.